Good evening, everyone. My name is Emily Chong, and I will be your moderator for the evening. Thank you for coming to our Mayoral Forum. Although we unfortunately could not have everyone here watching in person, we are happy to have them watching from the comfort and safety of their own homes. Before we begin, the Downtown Lethbridge BRZ and Lethbridge Public Library would like to acknowledge that we are gathered on the lands of the Blackfoot people of the Canadian Plains and pays respect to the Blackfoot peoples past, present, and future, while recognizing and respecting their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationship to the land. The city of Lethbridge is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. Our municipal election is a very important time for our downtown and the greater Lethbridge community. The candidates who are elected will form the level of government that is closest to our daily lives. Their vision, leadership, and decisions that they will make will have a significant effect on the growth and prosperity of our community. A city's downtown serves as a symbol of its economic viability, vibrancy, and uniqueness. Our downtown is one of our strongest connections we have to our history. It is truly the heart of our city. In order for the successful revitalization of our downtown to continue, it is important that we continue to have a strong vision, leadership, and support from our candidates. The format for this evening is pretty straightforward. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves. This will be followed by a round of questions delivered by our media panel. In each round, there will be 5 questions posed to each candidate. Each candidate will take turns answering the same question. There are a total of 3 rounds of questions with a short break in between each round. Our media panel tonight consists of Dory Modney of Lethbridge News Now, Hal Roberts of Bridge City News, Tom Ralston from Global News, and Sherry Kane from the Downtown Lethbridge BRZ board. The forum today is being broadcast live and will be broadcast on Shaw TV several more times before the election day. Before we begin introductions, we would like to acknowledge that all candidates running for mayor were informed and invited to tonight's forum. Colton, the maniac Menzak, is unable to attend this evening and sends his regrets. Now I would like to welcome Sheldon Joseph, Day Chief, to provide a 2-minute introduction of himself.
Okay, good evening, Lethbridge. My name is Sheldon Day Chief. I'm privileged and honored to be invited to this forum tonight. My history here within Lethbridge runs deep, probably to the beginning, and co-founder of this city was my great-grandmother, Whitetail Deer Woman, who was married to Nicholas Sharon. And they both owned the Sharon Mines down below here in the coulees. They both co-owned the mine until 1892 when Nicholas Sharon passed away and drowned in the Oman River. Today, I am sharing my passion for change for the city of Lethbridge. I have worked in the field of human relations for most of my career. I am a correctional officer, correctional social worker by trade. And I have dealt with our most vulnerable, those that call the streets their home, for going on probably 25 out of the 30 years that I've called Lethbridge home. I grew up in this area. I grew up and I worked in this area throughout my adult life. And I am passionate, and I've seen a change that I'm sure many of you have, that have declined our standard of living as we know it 8 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll turn it over to Blaine Higgin.
Thank you very much. I just want to take a moment to thank the Downtown BRZ and the Lethbridge Public Library here for hosting this event tonight. Appreciate it during these COVID times. You've all had to pivot, and I appreciate you all being here, and also to the media. Thank you. A minute to introduce myself. My name is Blaine Hagan, for those of you who don't know me. I was first elected to Lethbridge City Council in 2013. I've owned and operated various different businesses in Lethbridge for the past 30 years. Matter of fact, 3 of them here in the downtown core. I'm married to my wife of just over 30 years. We just celebrated an anniversary here in July. And I have 2 children that have returned home from Edmonton and Calgary to work here in our community after studying X-ray technology and film and video production. I love the downtown. I obviously love the downtown. I had 3 businesses here in the downtown core. I did have a few concerns at that time that have definitely gotten stronger over the years. And one of my platforms is safety in our community. And it's something that most of the businesses are when I go and talk to the businesses in this downtown area, it seems to be a common comment is we need safety. So the buzzword of revitalizing our downtown, I'm trying to see where the clock is, I'm sorry. Oh, 30 seconds, thank you. The main comment of the buzzword of revitalizing our downtown comes at every single election. And it's my understanding that if once we get to the root of the cause, and that is some of the social issues, then we'll be able to get back to a better revitalization of our downtown. And that can happen. And I think it should happen sooner than later with helping those that are most vulnerable in our community and finding the social services for them that they require. So with that, thank you.
Thank you. We'll now turn the mic to Gary Clawson.
I'd like to thank you guys all for inviting us to this forum. I'm new at this type of stuff, so it's kind of not political for me that much, but I was born and raised in Lethbridge area, and I went to school here, and I graduated Kate Anders High School in Coaldale. A little bit of my history, my father and I, we had a sand and gravel business, and we did that for over 22 years. During this time, I got married, had 2 wonderful kids. Working with my dad, I learned a lot about business and people. When the trucking ended, I became a realtor. I've been a realtor now for 29 years. And being a realtor, you turn around and you meet so many different people from different varieties and different walks of life. It's very interesting, very rewarding to be able to deal with people, help them with their major purchase in their life. I've volunteered at an early age when I was in my 20s. I was on police commission in Coaldale. I was leader of a worship team at my Sunrise Church in Coaldale. And I like singing and praising the Lord. I started a motorcycle club back in Coaldale, and the club was built on the Temple Hill motorcycle track. That track is still in existence today, and it's a very useful, fun thing. My cousin Eric and I started teaching archery to youth and adults in Coaldale. We raised money to buy equipment and build our own targets as well. We enjoyed teaching archery for over 15 years. I'm an avid motorcycle rider, and because of that, I turned around and actually taught motorcycle training at the college for a semester. I was vice president of the Galt No. 8 Mine Society, which is part of Lethbridge, and that's what started Lethbridge, is the coal mining business in Lethbridge. I am a member of the Coaldale Custom Cruisers Car Club. I'm the president, and we do a lot of different events and things that, thank you very much for letting me speak to you guys today.
Thank you. Now we'll turn it over to Bridget Mearns.
Thank you. I'd like to take this opportunity to offer my thoughts and instead invite you to see my bio and my credentials on my website, bridgetmearns.ca. I've been hearing from Lethbridgians, they're tired of the division of council and division they're seeing in the community, and they have a vision for a better Lethbridge, and that they're looking for results and they want change. You'll hear tonight that the issues affecting Lethbridge are clear to all candidates. How we differ is our leadership approach, experience, and competency. My priorities are focused firstly on the social and safety issues in our city. This will be key for a successful, vibrant downtown. We'll need to tackle this as a community as we work with other municipalities, First Nations and Métis leaders, and levels of government. This requires skill and experience. The office of mayor is not an entry-level position. I will get started on day one to tackle the serious issues facing our city and to start to build a strong council team. Lethbridge needs a mayor who is working in the best interest of all its citizens and doesn't turn issues into wedges that divide council and our community, as we saw with the supervised consumption site. As your mayor, I will put people before politics and focus on results. Lethbridge needs to address high taxes and user fees and ensure we support economic development and invest in the areas that maintain our quality of life and the reasons we love our city. In the last few years, Lethbridge has been defined by our challenges, and it's hurt our reputation. It affects our competitiveness and affects our ability to attract and retain businesses and professionals. As your mayor, I will change the narrative. I'm ready to offer my broad experience as a public servant, a business leader, a community builder, and a champion for Lethbridge. I'm the change that you want and the experience we need, and now's the time. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now turn it over to Stephen Mogdan.
Thanks very much, Emily. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Oki. My name is Stephen Mogdan, and I'm seeking to earn the honor of serving you as Mayor of Lethbridge. I've called Lethbridge home for more than 20 years. It's where my wife and I chose to settle down and raise our 2 boys. It's a wonderful city with lots of great advantages. It's where I've built a career for over 20 years as a lawyer. And it's where I've been lucky enough to serve my community in various roles with various nonprofit groups in Lethbridge, including leading the Lethbridge Chamber of Commerce and the Lethbridge YMCA. I've also served 2 terms on the board of the Downtown Lethbridge BRZ, including being the chairperson. We're here tonight to talk about probably many issues, but since the BRZ is hosting this forum, we'll likely talk about some downtown issues for sure. It's a crucial discussion point. The downtown is a very important part of Lethbridge and in a lot of ways occupies a very special place or status in our city, kind of like Emily was talking about at the start. Making the downtown more successful is an ongoing effort, and success won't be measured by shortened yardsticks or rushed expectations. It's a process and one on which we need to continue focusing our attention. I've worked every day in the downtown for the past 20 years, and I've owned a business in the downtown for the past 13 years. So downtown is really personally important to me. I'm truly invested in the downtown. Regardless of what happens with this election, I'll continue to be a big supporter of building a stronger downtown. What does that look like in practice, though? First and foremost, it requires leadership. Unfortunately, we've seen a lot of division on council regarding downtown as well as other issues. That doesn't help us move forward. We need to get past that and focus on progressive solutions for the downtown. That requires leadership, and that's what I bring to the table: calm, competent, and collaborative leadership. It's what I've done throughout my career, bringing groups of people together to achieve results. It's what I pledge to you as the voter. At the end of the evening, please ask yourself who you think is best able to bring together their colleagues on council, to lead council, and to achieve results. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, candidates, for those introductions. We'll now transition into our first round of questions. Remember that there will be 5 questions in each round, and each candidate will have 1 minute to take their turn in answering the question. Our media panel over here will be posing the questions today. We'll start our first round of questions with our candidates, who will answer in alphabetical order, starting with Sheldon Daychief. Dory Modney, will you please pose the first question?
So Sheldon, if you were elected to City Council, what reconciliation or Indigenous community priorities would you advocate for?
To begin with, I believe that leadership has to bring his team forward to work together. The first thing I would be advocating is to work with our Indigenous communities. They have a big investment within the city of Lethbridge. So when you were talking about reconciliation, I believe it's the truth that needs to be realized. And it's something that we need to be discussing seriously, and that we need to be accepting that. And it's not causing a division, it's causing so that we can understand each other, and more education, awareness, and creativity will bring people together. Thank you.
Thank you. Blaine Hagan.
Thank you very much for that question. Currently, the City of Lethbridge have an excellent Truth and Reconciliation Committee that meets on a regular basis. I've had the opportunity to serve on that committee for a 6-month period, as all of the deputy mayors and the mayor sit on that committee. The information is brought there it's very eye-opening. And I know that my colleague had mentioned about truth. And we had an elder come and speak to us that said, we can't have reconciliation until we have truth. And so that's something that I want to make sure that we find out what is more about the truth of what has happened to our Indigenous, the Indigenous peoples in our community and surrounding areas. So I would definitely want to watch what the Truth and Reconciliation Committee brings forward to council and make decisions based on those expert advices. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary Clawson.
The fact about the Indigenous people, it's a fact that we've just got to get along, work together, and find out what will help each of us out, help them out, help us out. We got to work together to make things happen. That's all.
Thank you. Bridget Mearns.
Thank you. I give kudos to the city on this. Over the last number of years, they've done a great job with adopting Oki, the permanent place for the Blackfoot Confederacy flag. I would ensure as mayor that the policies that are in the MDP that recognize First Nations and Métis, those policies are indeed enacted. Making sure that the memorandum of understanding is also something that is implemented and kept to. I think those are all important responsibilities that move us closer to reconciliation. As you've heard, the first part of truth and reconciliation is truth, and we all have to take it upon ourselves to learn the truth, speak the truth, hear the truth, and that will get us on a path to reconciliation.
Thank you. Stephen Mogdan.
Yes, thank you. I would actually echo a little bit what Ms. Mearns has just said. I think council has done a reasonably good job of focusing attention on improving our relations with our First Nations and Métis communities here. So I think we need to continue in a good faith effort to have outreach to those populations, including groups that are responsible for the leadership of those. I think we need to seek a greater understanding of the history of Indigenous relations in Canada as a whole, in Alberta, and in this area, and really build on that understanding. It's something that understanding leads to empathy, which leads to solutions, and that's what I think we need to do.
Thank you. For the next question, we'll continue with our alphabetical order, starting with Sheldon Day Chief again. Hal Roberts.
Thank you so much. Now, given council's decision to remove council representation for some community boards, such as the library and the Galt Museum, as mayor, how will you ensure that you have all the information you need to make informed decisions in regards to these largely city-funded organizations?
The main aspect is to continue to reach out to them and have them come in and present to council. It is one way to keep the communication open. Over the past 4 years, I have not seen any representation for city council or the mayor to be reaching out and being visible in the community. So when they cut back on these two very important city programs, they have pretty much just dislodged themselves from the community itself, because these are very, very, very needed. And without these programs, our children, our families are, again, being left behind and not being consulted through anything. And these programs need to be, you need to continue to reach out to them so that you can ensure that your tax dollars are going to programs such as this that will continue to engage to the communities.
Thank you. Blaine Higgin.
Thank you. A year ago here, we'd developed on council this standing policy committees. And with the standing policy committees, my opinion, we've done some work with those standing policy committees, but I struggle with the connection we have to the community by having these. Prime examples was just mentioned by Sheldon, that having representation on these committees is extremely important. We've got another one that's coming up, the Municipal Planning Commission. That's not going to be in existence come January. I didn't support that, and I think it's important that we do have council representation on all of these committees. And I think it's something, if I am elected mayor, I would want to bring back the committees that we had previously, representation from council, so that information gets back to council colleagues and decisions could be made in a fair way. Also, it gives them better opportunity for citizens to engage with the community as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Gary Clawson.
I think we need to keep in touch with these groups and help them to keep, let us know what's going on in their situations, what they're doing. We need to know what's going on and have to have a cooperation between them and us. We need to know what's going on. It's important, because if you don't know what's happening and they're city funded, you should know what's going on with the city funded groups.
Awesome. Thank you. Bridget Mearns.
Thank you. I actually appreciate that this went to standing policy committees. It made a lot of sense to me. So instead of having one member of council sit on an external board, there's now these standing policy committees where these committees or these associations or these boards come forward to these 4 members of council, and they listen, and these 4 members understand what's happening versus just one member that may or may not report back. So this is an opportunity also for the public to engage with these standing policy committees on the issue. Where the problem is how it's reports back to city council. Currently, when a standing policy committee has a recommendation, it goes to the consent agenda. And I know I'm policing out here on you guys, but it goes to the consent agenda. It shouldn't. Anything that comes out of standing policy committee should go on the agenda as a presentation. So I think going to these standing policy committees actually strengthens engagement with these boards and commissions and allow for a lot more engagement with council and a report back to the council of whole.
Thank you. Stephen Mogdan.
You know, having a last name that begins with M usually puts you in the middle of responses. It certainly did when I was going through school, but now I get to go last every time. So really, this question involves listening to the community. And I would echo some of the previous comments. I think the move to the standing policy committees was a good move that way. It does allow for a little more engagement, a little easier forum for people to bring things forward to council. At the end of the day, we're not so large here in Lethbridge that we really shouldn't be able to understand what issues are facing those groups, to be able to hear what's going on with them. I know for myself, I've presented to council on occasions before on behalf of the Lethbridge Chamber of Commerce and the Downtown BRZ. I always found council to be very receptive, very attuned to what we were presenting, very helpful, and I think we should continue on in that vein.
Thank you. We'll continue again from starting with Sheldon, Day Chief over here. Tom Ralston, will you please pose the next question?
Thank you. Could you each share your thoughts on public art and its role in the community?
Public art is needed. Festivals are needed. We need to bring those back into the community. Right now, especially these last 18 months, we've been secluded so much that it has played a big role in our mental health and our stability in our city. And public art is a display of how the vitality of the city is and how inclusive it can be. If we don't have the art that's out there and being shared by all nations of all cultural backgrounds, then we are excluding so much of our persons. And it's a personal expression. And the city of Lethbridge should promote that and really capitalize on cultural festivities, and that will bring more economic development into the community.
Thank you. Blaine Higgin.
Thank you. I know a lot of people say, well, Blaine, you don't like the arts. I do like the arts. I do like the arts a lot. And I love the murals. I love everything that is done regarding the arts. Now, some concerns that I had through one of our last operating budgets, we understand a percentage of our capital projects go towards the arts, art projects. And so, and it's something that is of importance. Now, I understand, as what the previous speaker had mentioned, that of course, it's part of our society, especially going through these trying times. It's something that is important to have out in our community. But there's to me, especially through these trying times with COVID, I've thought that putting a pause on some of the projects that we've had, the hundreds of thousands of dollars could have went to other projects to get us through this COVID. And so I do love the arts, and they're definitely a necessary part of our community, and I will continue to support them as funds are available.
Thank you. Gary Clawson.
Public art is very, very important. Okay, there's many wonderful, wonderful artists out here in Lethbridge area. They've all got wonderful stuff that they've been doing. They're talented people, and what happens with the arts like this, younger people that are coming up, they enjoy this too. They want to turn around and display their stuff and learn more and do art. There's people that have such talent from the Indigenous people right to everybody else. They've got talent. I've seen beautiful artwork from everybody. And now you get the younger children that want to grow and learn, and this arts community teaches them that, and they learn so well and so much. It's vital that we keep this up for the community.
Thank you. Bridget Mearns.
I think public art is incredibly important. It helps define us as a uniqueness as a city. I've lived and traveled all over the world, and it's how cities define themselves, and it's certainly how we define ourselves here as well. It's an important way of supporting the arts, or how our municipality can support the arts. We just look around, and I'm pretty proud of the murals that we see, the other public art displays that we have. I do appreciate that it's 1% of a capital build, and for larger builds that could affect the viability of a project, or it might even compete against other capital priorities. But I think it is an important part of what we do here in our city, and the policy is important. If there is one thing that perhaps we could look at when there are times that we're facing such as this, is looking at that 1% for larger projects. But in my mind, it's an incredibly important policy for Lethbridge.
Thank you. Stephen Mogdan.
Thank you. So we tend to, when we're doing these types of forums, we tend to try to evaluate this as, is public art a luxury or is it a need? I can tell you one thing, if you don't have art, if you don't have music, if you don't have books, if you don't have those things that sort of stir your soul, you miss it, right? And I view it kind of a little bit like, spending on parks. If you don't use the parks, you'll kind of resent any spending on it, but that doesn't mean that it's not an important thing. And if we want to look at spending on public art as is it a luxury or a need, I think that's maybe the wrong way to view it. Really, I think it should be looked at as part of the mixture that brings richness to community life. Do we need to be careful with our dollars? Always. I mean, that's basic. But you don't really want to take away public art.
Awesome. Thank you. We'll start again with Sheldon Day Chief. Sherry Kane, will you please pose the next question?
What do you consider to be the most pressing downtown concern that needs to be addressed?
Our social issues. It's affected everything of the city. It's citywide, and we are the hub of the rising crime, and it's affected our safety and our well-being of everybody. We've seen news articles of human trafficking, which in itself, is I don't even have the words to express it. But when you have other deaths that are happening, 3 in a week or 2 at our women's shelter, that in itself should be the main topic right now. Because if we don't deal with our social issues, no matter how much economic development or beautifying the city you can do, that stigma is always going to be there for the whole city.
Awesome. Thank you, Sheldon. I know it's a big issue and we have lots to say about it, but Blaine Higgin.
Thank you. I wish I could just say ditto, because that was exactly right. Our social issues. I want to go back to a story here. I was back in the early 80s. We used to travel down to Lethbridge here. I grew up in Sparwood, and I remember going and getting a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken and go get a jug of root beer from A&W, and we'd go down to Galt Gardens and have a picnic with a family and meet our family here in town. And I dare say that I would be concerned to do that today. And it's because of some of the social concerns. I know one of the biggest things, I remember seeing it one time, I saw this Mickey as I was walking through the park, and I thought it was the end of the world. Now those concerns are limited. This is far greater than that. There's needle debris. You're getting accosted as you walk through the park. The social concerns need to be addressed, because until we address those, our downtown businesses won't flourish the way that I believe they could.
Thank you. Gary Clawson.
downtown is a very vital part of our life. Downtown is like your living room. You know, you don't want to have stuff going on downtown that in your living room, like drugs or homelessness or addictions, but they all go together. Like the homelessness and the addictions, they lead to the crime. And the crime downtown is terrible, like people panhandling, asking for money. You know, that used to be such a beautiful park, and it can be again. It can be a beautiful park. It was just nice for people to go down there and visit and have a good time. That's what the park is for, is to go there and enjoy yourselves. So it has to be cleaned up to make it back the way it was.
Thank you. Bridget Mearns.
Thank you. I think downtown is fantastic. I think it's always has had its challenges, but it's parks and its people and its businesses. Without a doubt, I think we all agree the biggest challenge facing downtown are the social issues and the community safety, or the perceived community safety in the area. I've spent some time speaking with people and heard their frustrations, but at the very core of all of it was just they want to see some results. There's compassion. There's people are looking for this to be solved from a place of collaboration and dignity for all. And that's really where we're going to find our solutions. And I think it's a great place and has a great future.
Thank you. Stephen Mogdan.
And certainly I agree. Downtown is a great place. I've been working in the downtown for my entire career here, more than 20 years. I think like my colleagues up here, social issues are definitely the most concerning issue that we face in the downtown. But also coupled with that is the perception of what those issues are, and it's something that we need to examine very carefully, because sometimes we make that situation a little bit worse than we actually need to. I mean, show me a downtown that doesn't have concerns. I'm waiting for that. We certainly need to look at reducing crime and other behaviors that people complain about, but you do that by addressing social problems, and reducing the instances where we're talking about how bad it is in Lethbridge. I think that's key, right? We need to lead on that and tell that story.
Again, we'll start with Sheldon, Day Chief over here, and Dory.
Picking on me? No.
Dory Bodney will pose the last question for this round.
So the topic is the Performing Arts Center. The current council has placed it into its capital improvement program, but it's an issue that's very polarizing within the city. Working in a newsroom, I've heard both ends of it, and it's not attractive. But as a mayor, do you support the commitment for a performing arts center, and how would you go about completing the project, given at this point we have no financing for it?
First of all, as a mayor and as the leader of your team, I would definitely have to weigh the pros and cons of it. Firstly, we are in the middle of the fourth wave, and you look at this room here. We couldn't pack it with an audience listening to us. So we have to weigh the pros and cons of it. If we don't have the financing of it, I wouldn't expect the taxpayers to put the blunt of it, because in the beginning, in this fourth wave, I couldn't quantify building a huge theater building for the arts if we can't come up with the financing for the O&M. That's the operation and maintenance of it. So you would have to weigh the need before the want. Thank you.
Thank you. Blaine Higgin.
Thank you. This council had approved this to be in the in the capital CIP here in the next 10 years. So this is not in this next 5 years, but beyond. Again, it's a finance thing, and it's something that a lot of times we think about the cost of the capital cost. So if we got something that's going to be 80, 90, $100 million, we think the capital cost, but a lot of times we don't really think about the operational cost of it, the millions a year it takes to operate that facility, the staffing, expenditures, the other expenditures that go into the building. So it's something we need to remember, that it's not just the capital cost. And right now, going through this pandemic, and as well as many other things that we've got on our plate, it's to me at this moment here, it's a want and it's not a need. And I'm big about people before projects, and let's get our house in order before we move on to something like this.
Thank you. Gary Clawson.
Well, the Performing Arts Center is very important, very vital item. But can we afford to have a new building for that? We've got quite a few buildings that we've got already that are very useful and being used for performing arts. Like we have the Yates, we have the Saka downtown and stuff. I mean, that stuff is good, things like that. If you're looking to build a new building and stuff like that, that's not feasible right at this time. But it is a good thing to have, because there's artists, there's musicians, there's all kinds of stuff that is really great to have, because you don't want to shut it down because of cost, but you gotta look at the pros and cons if you can afford it or not. And like Blaine was saying, it's costs to run it later on too. So that's one of the things we have to look into, Thank you.
Thank you. Bridget Mearns.
Thank you. This is obviously a project that's been talked about in our community for quite some time. And there's a reason for that. It's something that the city has determined through the multiple CIPs that this is something the city requires. The Yates is inadequate. There is an economic argument to be made that this type of facility would bring in economic impact, would bring in shows we couldn't bring without it, really, but the question is always the how. So, and to your question, how are we going to do that? I don't think it's going to take traditional funding models. I think it's going to take some partnerships. We're going to have to look at probably private and public partnerships, probably even some fundraising. But I think it's going to take different ways of thinking about how we traditionally fund these projects. But without a doubt, it is something the community has identified. And we can't stop building today. We have to continue to build for tomorrow. And I think this is one of those projects.
Thank you. Stephen Mogdan.
Yes, thank you. So I do support the idea of a performing arts center. Really a growing city. I mean, we're 100,000 people now, and we're continuing to grow at a fairly steady pace. A growing city needs to have this type of facility. It needs it to attract people. It needs it to keep people in the community. We cry a lot about people coming here, going to school, and then leaving and not building a life here. This is the type of thing that attracts people and keeps people. And so, I do support that idea. It does, in my view, attract dollars. It does build an industry in that area. And, we tend to spend a lot on physical recreation. Maybe we should also be prioritizing things like a performing arts center.
Awesome. Thank you. And that concludes the first portion of our questioning. We're going to take a quick 5-minute break, let everyone collect their thoughts, have some water, and then we will be back at 6:42. If everyone wants to return to their seats, we'll get started with a round 2.
If I'm not doing that, I'm going to be off the hook. That's just sort of my thing. But I tell you, through COVID, that has been one of the most important elements in my life, as a professional and as a business owner, is having those relationships that, there's so much uncertainty, so much, just those nights where you don't sleep. It's fellowship. Support.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. We will begin now round 2 of our questioning. For this session, we will go in reverse order, starting with Stephen Mogdan, and he will be answering first this time. Hal Roberts, would you please ask your first question?
Sure, thank you so much. Let's talk about the crime severity index and how Lethbridge is ranked near the top. We've all seen the reports, yet council decided to cut $1 million from the police budget. If you were elected mayor, would you put the money back in for the LPS or would you leave it as is? And why?
Thanks, Hal. So I answered this question as probably some of my colleagues did through the Lethbridge Herald survey the other day. So budget issues always need to be looked at in terms of overall fiscal responsibility. I don't think you can sort of silo any particular portion of the budget and say, yes, I'm going to deal only with that, right? It has an impact on all of the areas of the budget. The reality is, if we're putting money into policing with the intent that that is going to reduce crime, I think we're going to be disappointed with the result. And that's not at all a reflection on our police service. I think our police service is great, but that's not what really addresses crime. What addresses crime is getting to the root causes, getting to poverty, getting to homelessness, getting to trauma and drug addiction, getting to those issues. To me, that's where dollars are well spent, and you get the return on those dollars. Take that stuff away from having to have the police deal with that.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephen. I'll go to Bridget Mearns now.
Thank you. It's going to have to be addressed. I mean, there was $1 million taken out of the budget, and the surplus is what carried it through. There was an additional amount taken out. There's also 3 programs that have been added that used to be covered in the city operational budget. But again, dollars and cents isn't the end of it. Having to look at how that money is spent, what is the results of those programs? Are they addressing the issues and the concerns that we're seeing in the community? And that's up to the police commission. They're the ones who are responsible for that budget and the spend of that budget. So ensuring that the police commission is coming back with annual reports, that they're coming back with an action plan and reporting to council on those initiatives. That's where I see that we can have a real impact as a council and as a mayor.
Thank you. Gary Clawson.
I agree with Stephen. He is right. It's not just the crime. What happens, the homelessness and the addictions that creates crime. And so if you take the budget away from the police force, then they turn around and they can't take care of all of the jobs they have to do. If they turn around and they help with the homelessness and the addictions, then that'll help cut the crime. If you cut the crime, you don't have to have such a big police budget. But I believe the police deserve that $1 million budget plus more. I think that they're doing a great job and they need to have help. We need to help find out where it starts at. Like I say again, starts with the addictions, goes with the homelessness, goes with crime. So that those 3 things are what we need to take care of so that the police don't have to have so much work to do.
Thank you. Blaine Higgin.
Thank you very much, Al, for that question. Absolutely. I would want to restore that police budget. I tried last year when it was removed in the operating budget. I was quite saddened by this. We're going through a pandemic. We have an opioid crisis, and we decided to remove $1 million from the police budget. What that does is it really puts a burden on our chief, and these officers are out doing their work. And what happens is now we don't want to remove officers from the street with this budget, so we end up cutting the civilian staff, the ones that do a lot of the paperwork, that help do the support services. The problem with that is that the officers now are doing that. So they're spending less time on the streets and more time doing paperwork. This is something that we need the police officers out there. We need the feet on the street to create a safer community. I didn't support the capital, the budget for not the capital, sorry, the operating budget because of that. And one of the main reasons.
Thank you, Blaine. Sheldon Daichi.
The city of Lethbridge has had a strategic plan since 2006, 2007 that called for collaboration and partnership. Now, when we're dealing with the policing service, which is one of our most important services within a city or a community or a municipality, there is no way that it should be affected in its budget or in its approach. When you have a strategic plan that calls upon collaboration and partnership, you have different policing agencies within the city of Lethbridge. Also the supporting agencies that can help and support the policing services here within the city of Lethbridge. Also, you have policing services within the region that can help us reduce and cut down on the crime that is happening within the city of Lethbridge and the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question, again, we'll start with Stephen Mogdan. Tom Ralston, will you please pose the question?
Thank you. What leadership actions have you taken in the past that can give voters confidence in your ability to lead if you are elected mayor?
Thanks very much, Tom. As I indicated off the top in my introductory remarks, I've been lucky enough to be the person able to lead a number of organizations in our community. The Lethbridge Chamber of Commerce, president of that in 2014, 2015, the Lethbridge YMCA, and the Downtown BRZ, actually. And so through that, depending on the organization, we achieved some remarkable results. Back with the Lethbridge Chamber, we had a significant governance issue that we had to deal with, cutting down our board from a rather large board to a much more manageable and much more effective board. And that was something that we moved forward with on that. With the Lethbridge YMCA, you probably noticed that there's a bit of a empty spot across the street from here. And that involved a very difficult decision for that organization to move over to the west side to the ATB Center where they operate the Corps Van Ray YMCA. And that's difficult to push that forward and make that a reality.
Thank you, Stephen. Bridget Mearns.
Oh, that's such a wide, broad question. I've been in a leadership role for many years in our community, whether it was leading the redevelopment project at Exhibition Park. So that started with bringing people together, understanding where it's going to be, what it's going to look like, how we're going to fund it. Currently, I'm the executive officer of the Building Industry and Land Development Association, which is one of the largest residential construction, one of the largest industries in our city. So merging two organizations into Build. Also on council, having a number of initiatives moving forward, starting with things like Tourism Lethbridge. Again, that's bringing groups together to start a new entity, changing our title from to alderman to councillor, working on the Blue Bin program. There's a number of things that I've led that I believe have brought our city and our community forward.
Thank you. Gary Clawson.
Well, I've been self-employed since 1972. And in this time, I've also started a motorcycle club, which we turned around and built a motorcycle track out at Raymond. I've also been a vice president of the Galt No. 8 Mine Society. And being a vice president of the Mine Society, we turned around and we raised money to help with the society to make a better. We restored a bus. We had a bunch of different committees to make this thing work. I'm the president right now of the Coldale Motorcycle Club. And being president of a motorcycle, Coldale Custom Cruisers, okay? Being a president of a car club, you got a lot of members and stuff. We put together quite a few show and shines. And we do a lot of travels and stuff with other clubs. I'm good with organizing. I like doing that. And it's a lot of fun doing that. Being the mayor of City of Lethbridge will be a job, but it'll be a great job.
Thank you. Blaine Higgin.
Thank you. When I hear the word leadership, it comes in a lot of different ways. We can lead our community through volunteerism. It's the first thing that came to mind. Volunteerism. I've done a lot of volunteer work in the past. Volunteer with helping different organizations throughout our community. Those that were struggling with crime and concerns on the north side, and volunteered time there. Volunteered with scout groups. Volunteering is extremely important in our community. Now, further to that, I have also on council have had the opportunity to chair a few different committees. I was the chair of Lethbridge Housing for just over 6 years. Chair of the Municipal Planning Commission. A lot of those brought change to our community. And although leadership, I did have some leadership that I wanted to in a few different resolutions over the past, multiple different resolutions over the past. One was to limit the needles leaving from our supervised consumption site. I thought that was a leadership role. I was found that it was not a leadership role and was voted against, as well as leadership to ask the province to review the funding at the SCS, which was not, my leadership wasn't followed there. So
Thank you, Blaine.
leadership comes in a lot of different ways.
Sheldon Daichi.
I served on Blood Tribe Chief and Council for 4 years, 2008 to 2012. I spearheaded international partnerships that are still the economic drivers of our community. One with Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Japan, and the United States. I also was the liaison for our community that helped spearhead and draft a community strategic plan against drugs and alcohol and community violence. Today, I'm still succeeding by bringing forward cross-cultural awareness to local schools here in Lethbridge for McLeod. And this year, I welcome Nanton as part of the fold. And I am a co-owner with my wife over there with a small business that is flourishing online with arts and crafts. And as you can see, the lovely lady that's sitting beside her, she adorns her own line of clothing. That is one of the Every Child Matters.
Awesome. Thank you, Sheldon.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to the next question. We'll start again with Stephen Mogdan. Sherry Kane, will you please pose the question?
Stephen, do you support a ward system as Lethbridge continues to grow? Why or why not?
Thanks, Sherry. So notwithstanding the significant ambiguity of the referendum question that we're going to see on the ballot for this coming up, I'm currently not in favor of the ward system or instituting a ward system. Really, the idea is intended to potentially address some perceived problems that we have with our at-large system, but it doesn't guarantee that those problems are going to be addressed effectively. So some of the pros of a ward system are, having the idea of having an effective representation for a particular area, reducing barriers to people running, simplifying the voting process. Maybe you don't have 32 council candidates that you have to pick and choose from, but those things aren't certain to be effective. I'd rather see myself term limits for council than I would to see a ward system. If you look around in Alberta, very few communities have a ward system, and those that do, those wards tend to be about the size of the population of Lethbridge, so it's currently not warranted here.
Thank you. Bridget Mearns.
Thank you. This question has come up before when I was on council, and I did do some research on this and talk to the community. The reason that wards happen is because people feel that they're not represented in their particular area. Often it's in large areas, not in small municipalities like ours. They do exist in Ontario in some places, but what tends to happen with ward system is you start to pit sections of a city against the other. And when you're in a growing city with our population, I don't know that that's the best thing that we should be doing. Less division is better. Really, the decisions we make should be in the best interest of Lethbridge as a whole. That being said, I understand that people feel that may be better representation for them. I think that's an important discussion to continue to have. Maybe there are other ways that we can address those concerns than a ward system. But I look forward to seeing what the results of the ballot say.
Thank you. Gary Clawson.
I've thought about the ward system many times, and like my previous people just said, we're a small city. we want to keep our city united and not divided. If you have a ward system, like they say, they'll turn around and they'll have their sections and they'll just want to, only work for their section, where we should be working for the entire city, not just a certain little group. Now, I thought when I became mayor, I'd see what I could do with different councilmen, put them in a different group and see how it works like that. If they can handle, like, let's say the Southwest has to have something happening and they have to get hold of a certain counselor to let us know what's going on. And they'll know who they have to talk to that way, because they can phone and talk to that guy. Now, the ward system is like the whole ward system itself is a little bit, I think, like we say, we're too small of a city to be a ward system.
Thank you. Blaine Higgin.
Thank you for that question. It's all about representation, of course. There's numerous times that certain parts of the community don't get the responses that others do. There's been different ideas and thoughts that I've thrown around in the past of having a hybrid type system where you have two counselors downtown, 2 in the west, 2 in the south, and 2 in the north, and they rotate through. So they get an idea of all the different communities and the different areas in our community. That's one way that we could be kind of a hybrid system for a ward system. I'm really looking forward to what comes out of the election question as it comes back to council, because I think it's important to reach out to the community and get their input on this. I didn't support spending $50,000, $100,000 to look into this. I thought that put this out to the community. It's a great idea, but let's face it, looking at 32 candidates, I get calls on a regular basis. How is it that we can research all these candidates before the election comes along? So there's one of the reasons for a ward system. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheldon Daychief.
I'm from the Blackfoot Confederacy. Traditionally, we lived through a clan system, same thing as a ward system. As far as I'm concerned, a ward system promotes accountability and transparency. It also gives the ward system also gives a community section of our city more of a voice. Yes, it can create separatism, but the responsibility of your council and your mayor is to keep it collaborative, keep it cohesiveness, and keep that partnership together. Because if it's not there, as it is right now, you see the divisiveness that's happened in our leadership today, and just some of our population is being represented more so than others. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, we'll start with Stephen Mogdan over at the end over there. Dory Modney, will you please pose the next question?
I'm going to take you back to the policing issue. I work in downtown Lethbridge, right in the middle of downtown. Any given day, I can sit in my office, look out on the streets, and some of the things I see, I just shake my head, and I'm concerned about some of the young people I see. The biggest thing I see going on right now, and I wonder if it's a direct correlation to the fact that the police have lost some money in their budget. So what are they supposed to do? What are we supposed to do as citizens when we're watching 2 and 3 times a week drug sales going on? And I'm not talking about, just random people. I'm talking about people who are well-dressed, not business people, but well-dressed young people. They're obviously making a lot of money to be dressed that way. And they're selling drugs left, right, and center downtown. I watch it 2 and 3 times a week out of my office window. Now, if I was to phone the police, it would take them probably more than an hour to get there. By that time, they're gone. Drug sales in this city. So what do you do about it? Yeah, thank you very much.
Am I good to answer now? So I'd first of all question Dory whether that response would have been all that much different before the budget cut. The fact is you're going to have this type of thing happening in a city that is growing and is over 100,000 people. Do we condone it? No, we don't. Your policing service should always be concerned about drug sales, but we also need to be concerned about the need or the desire that feeds those sales. And that's where I'd like to see more attention spent. The fact is, yes, we're going to have crime. We're going to try to control that crime. The police are good for that. But you also need to have other options, right? You need to have other tools. And we've seen things like the watch that's been put in place, or our community peace officers. Those are good systems or good additions to your policing response. And we need to have those in place.
Thank you. Bridget Mearns.
Thank you. I can hear the passion in your voice, and I've heard the same concerns through others, and I understand where you're coming from. I also don't think there's a correlation with the budget, only because the budget was covered through surpluses. It's a difficult thing to see. It's a difficult thing to feel helpless to address, but there are 4 pillars to addressing addiction. And again, this is going, why are we seeing these drug sales to begin with? One is prevention, the other is harm reduction, the third is recovery and rehabilitation, and the fourth is enforcement. So obviously, when this activity happens, there's certain things that happen in the community, and you're seeing that, and enforcement is one of these pillars. I go back to the police commission and lay it there. I think the police are doing a good job, but I think we need to have an action plan. You need to know there's an action plan that needs to be communicated. There needs to be some accountability, and we need to know that we're making some results. So this is where I feel that the police commission could play a bigger role in providing some sort of guidance in this.
Thank you. Gary Clawson.
Drug issue is a major problem. The fact is that these people that are the drug dealers should be punished more severely than they are. Because if you don't have the drugs in the town, you won't have as much people using drugs, but they'll find it anyways. If you have the police patrolling around that area, the drug dealer will wait till the police have walked by, and then they'll do their job. But it's a thing, they've got to be stopped. They've got to be taken care of, and they've got to step down on that. I mean, walking the beat downtown is probably going to be a good thing to help, but they'll just go somewhere else and do it. They'll go around the corner and they'll do it. But like you say, you see it right outside your office 3 times a day. Take a picture of the guy, send it to the cops, let them arrest him, let them throw him in jail. They got to be removed. That's what's got to be done. They've got to be removed. Keep the drugs out of the city.
Thank you. Blaine Higgin.
Yes, Story. I've got to say that I believe it's a correlation with the budget reduction. Personally, I feel that way. We look at budget reduction. I've heard numerous times that, well, they had a surplus. Well, surplus was going towards things like body cameras. It was going towards things like training of if you remember this, and if you don't know, the police commission budget comes from the police. So this is part of this budget. And so of course, action plans that we're talking about being part of the of strategizing and finding ways to create a safer community and how to work with our police is something that comes from some of these budget cuts, because this is training. Now, I do want to say one thing, that the collaboration with the police commission, the collaboration with the chief of police when we're dealing with this, but not only that, one of the biggest things we need to work on is that relationship with the provincial minister of justice, the catch and release program that I believe many people believe we have at this time. And it's these individuals are arrested, they're put in jail. The police get a bad rap because they believe that it's them that let them back out. But no, they appear before a judge, and the judge releases them. So, and my time is up. So thank you.
Thank you. Sheldon Daichi, please.
That is why we need a regional approach. This problem, this issue is not only to the city itself. It's all over the place. And in order to reduce the crime and its effects, we need to have partnerships throughout this region. The other thing that I blame the situation of our city is on current leadership. We haven't had any visibility of leadership within our communities. No proaction. There's a huge disconnect to our community from leadership. The other thing too is that we need to start beginning to develop practical solutions where we give or offer those resources to those people that are vulnerable, that are addicted, so that they can help themselves. But we need to look at a housing first program before we can make those resources effective for our most vulnerable and are addicted to help themselves and be productive citizens of our city.
Thank you, Sheldon. We'll now go back over to Stephen Mogdan, and we'll have Hal Roberts posing the next question, please.
Thank you so much. You know, many people feel that property taxes are far too high in our city. Yours truly included right here. Now, a number of residents I've interviewed and chatted with said that we're not getting enough bang for our buck when it comes to services, including no snow removal in a lot of the secondary streets, residential streets. I can't tell you how many times I had to take my SUV and all-wheel drive to go pick up one of my coworkers because they can't get out of their own neighborhood. So what's your plan to provide services we need while keeping taxes in check? Stephen.
Well, and that's the $1 million question, right? I mean, there's lots of stuff that we want to have, right? We want to have the snow removal. We want to have our parks beautiful. We want to have downtown arts projects. We want to have all these things. And to do that, there's a cost to them. Now, should we be concerned about the cost? We always should be, right? Within the overall responsibility of city council to maintain fiscal responsibility, we always have to be concerned about those things. I think on the other side, though, of the expense question, you know, what you spend, and nobody likes to pay property taxes, but you also have to look at what we get for those property taxes. And yeah, we'll see some problems every now and then with things like snow removal. Things could maybe be done a little bit better, but at the end of the day, we have a lot of great services in our city. We have a lot of great features to our city. We pay something for those, but it's part of what, you know, makes living in Lethbridge a great place to be.
Thank you, Stephen. Bridget Mearns.
Thank you. Yes, I've heard high taxes for a while. And as the executive officer of Build, we brought forward a benchmarking study that showed that Lethbridge does have the second highest tax rate in the country. But again, taxes do create services, and everyone has a service that they want funded. I think there's a number of ways. You talked about bang for buck. For me, it's value for dollar, and looking that we're ensuring that we're investing the money in areas that create quality of life and the reason we love our city. This does a couple of things. One, it helps us attract and increase our property tax base by attracting businesses and growing our economy that way, making sure that we're on the other side of the equation. So looking at efficient government, making sure that the tax dollars are being well spent in the areas that provide us value. I only have 15 seconds left. This is a really big issue, but I think at the end of the day, it's really about value because we know that taxes pay for these incredible services and facilities that we have. It's also the reason we love our city, but we have to be very mindful that we are investing these tax dollars in things that bring us value.
Thank you. Gary Clawson.
Property taxes. That's a story. That's a question. We have the highest taxes. We do pay a lot of taxes, but we get some value for what we're doing. I think what we need to do, rather than get our money off the backs of the city taxpayers, we should run more city-run businesses. Have the city open and do some businesses that can make some money for the city. Businesses do a great deal for everything. They employ people. They help pay the tax for the city. And it's a great way that if you get more companies out there that open up, then they'll have more employees and everything works out better. But Lethbridge has to have its own businesses. It has to run some city businesses that would be well-earned money for the city. And the city can do that. The city can do that because this city is a smart city. They can do anything. And that's what I would recommend is that city has some of its own businesses to help support city taxpayers.
Thank you. Blaine Higgin.
Thank you very much for that question. Council in the last few years has kind of run a 0% tax increase. And everyone says this is wonderful. We got a 0% tax increase, but we're second highest, as has already been mentioned. We could have, if we put our needs before our wants in this last capital budget, we could have had a minus. I was looking at some of the different projects that I didn't support. Could have had a minus almost 5% tax, a minus 5% tax. So again, there's a lot of different ways we can increase or decrease our taxation. One is to increase business development in our community. We've got partnerships with Economic Development Lethbridge, working collaboration with the Chamber of Commerce as well. We need to attract more business into town as business pay higher tax rate, and that would lower the tax rate for the citizens in our community. So again, bring more business in, and we will be able to lower that tax rate. And being a business owner, that's something that I want to bring to the table here as mayor.
Thank you. Sheldon Daichi.
First of all, with our current leadership, haven't had any accountability where our taxpayers' dollars have been going to. We don't see any production or any outcomes to where our taxpayers' dollars are going. You mentioned it, snow removal. Where's those taxpayers? Where's those dollars going to? The other thing too is we need to look at and reevaluate projects that our taxpayers' dollars are going to, such as what do you call it, the green landfill that they're looking at right now. I forget what it's called now, but especially during our COVID, we need to support our citizens. We need to support our small businesses. Maybe by freezing our taxes or maybe reducing them a little bit so that we can help our citizens and our small businesses regain that confidence so that they can see that their leadership are supporting them so that they can make it through this COVID. A lot of our small businesses have had to close their doors
Thank you,
because of
Sheldon.
that.
Your time is up. Thank you, candidates, for all your answers for the last questions. We'll take now a brief 5-minute break, regain all of our thoughts, and we'll come back shortly at 7:20 for our last and final round of questions.
I shouldn't eat peanuts.
If everyone wants to find their seats, we'll get started on round 3. We'll once again go in alphabetical order, starting with Sheldon Daychief. Tom, I'm going to throw a wrench in your plans, and we're actually going to have Dory Modney posing the first question this round. Thank you.
This may seem like a really bizarre question. I have a very specific reason for asking it tonight. As mayoralty candidates, what's your perspective or your thoughts on the demeanor of a potential mayoralty candidate, both in council chambers, in public, and social media? And I have a very specific reason for asking this, because I've seen on social media things that just curl my hair from some candidates. So
as a mayoral candidate and somebody that is vying for the city seat, top seat, is I could only talk about my experiences and how I carry myself. And it's the first and foremost is respect. And you have to listen. Most of the time when you're talking to candidates and you're asking questions of them, they're already thinking about their response or how they're going to answer the question. You need to start listening. You need to start listening with respect, and you need to have compassion. And you need to take into consideration where that person is coming from. So all of the time that when I go out and I talk to individuals, I take that into consideration. I was taught that. And those morals and values carry me through every single day. And that's how I approach my candidacy today.
Thank
As a
you,
mayor,
Sheldon.
you need to have those responsibilities and personalities.
Blaine Higgin, please.
Thank you for the question. I hope I got that question right. I didn't really catch it all, Dory. My apologies if I go a little off the tangent here, but we have seen a few different candidates and a few different information throughout the social media regarding some candidates running. And of course, the question comes out: how are they eligible to run? How are these candidates eligible to run for council? Well, that isn't put in place by our local authorities. This isn't a Lethbridge thing. This is a provincial thing, as far as if you're able to run for a position in your community. And I've been the brunt of a lot of lies, I'll be very honest, of what's out there from some candidates. And you need to have some pretty broad shoulders. I know that there are lies that are being spewed, but of course it's something that we need. We're in the public. We're in the public view, and it's something that we definitely need to make sure that we act accordingly, and that we are professional in what we do and honest and transparent.
Thank you, Blaine. Gary Clawson.
Social media is quite a thing. Like Facebook originally, I thought was started so that you could see the pictures of your grandkids and how they're going, how things are happening. There's people that are using this social media to slander and hurt people. We're running for the mayor of Lethbridge. We have to be honest and listen to the people. We have to be heard, and we have to listen. It's more important that we are look and listen, and slandering people is not the way to do this. And like Blaine was saying, they say things and they're totally untrue. And what are you going to get from this? The person that's doing it is getting I'm doing this, but it's hurting people. And people listen to this, they watch the social media, but they don't know the real truth sometimes. And you gotta look and listen, and sometimes we all get it right.
Thank you. Bridget Mearns.
I think this is a very important part of being a mayor, is being able to lead a team, being able to create a team, and having that team understand the duty that's in front of them. Obviously laying the foundation. Anyone who's elected to office is elected there equally, but when they're sitting around the chamber, it's important that they have the respect of each other and respect of the office. So laying down that foundation, I think it would be important for a new council to have a retreat right away, get to know each other, understand the importance of their conduct in the public, understanding their responsibility to the community. Our community looks to our government for leadership and dignity. There are ways of dealing, if there was someone behaving that way on council, there are ways of dealing it with a code of conduct or even a charter. It would be unfortunate to need such a thing, but if that's what's required, I think that's what you have to do.
Thank you. Stephen Mogdan.
Yes, thanks. Thanks for the question. I think a mayor at all times needs to approach any communication, whether it's in council chambers, whether it's with, a person on the street, whether it's in social media. Number one, with honesty. Number two, being forthright. People will ask you what your thoughts are. People will say things to you. Just be honest with them. I think people honestly are looking for that. At the end of the day, being mayor requires you to bring people along with you. It requires you to lead, and you're not going to be able to do that if you're not able to have conversations with people. And that starts, of course, in council chambers with the people that are sitting around that table with you.
Thank you. Well, again, for the next question, start with Sheldon Daichi. Tom Ralston, please.
Thank you. We've heard a lot tonight about social issues, whether it be crime or drug use. In terms of local solutions, if you are elected mayor, what is a feasible action you could take to help find those local solutions? And if so, would you be committed to taking those actions within your first 90 days in office?
From day one, since I've announced my candidacy, I have introduced a vision and a strategy that calls for collaboration, partnership, and a connection from leadership to its citizenship to develop practical solutions. It also calls partnerships between existing agencies and supporting agencies that we can provide to those that are addicted and most vulnerable so that they can help themselves. It is also a regional approach where we need to reach out to surrounding communities for their best practices and their solutions so that we can implement and approach this situation on a regional level. But most importantly, from day one, I've said that the current council has taken a 10% wage cutback. My commitment is to take an additional 25% off of my wages and put it towards the solutions that are needed for our situation today.
Thank you, Sheldon. Blaine Hagan.
Thank you for that question, Tom. We talk about the first 90 days, 100 days, and I've always thought that that's intriguing to start off, a mayoral run in the next 4 years. But we know that, of course, as Mayor Carpenter once said, he says, you can get anything done with 4 other friends. Well, it takes a lot more than that. It takes that collaboration, that working together with your colleagues. Now, I will say one thing that the community, I want to make sure they reach out to the community, see what the community wants. It's more important there. And I think that engagement is extremely important. We need to get back to these town halls. And we've all heard of these town halls. We get together and you know what? We may not have the answers at all the times at these town halls, but we have them. We host them and we ask questions and we may not be able to answer them. Get that information, get that input, and that would go towards steering what we want to do in this next term. So community input, it's not as much as what I want, it's what the community wants. And that's what I'm looking forward to serving the community by doing.
Thank you. Gary Clawson.
Social issues, that's an important item right here. If you got to take care of the people, and it's the people that got to tell you what they want. Now, in the first 90 days, how are we going to, we can't solve all the problems in the first 90 days, but we can give it a shot. We can try. Again, we go back to the homelessness, the addictions, and the crime. If we can handle the addictions, they need more help than what we give right now. They're opening up new beds. They're opening up a new system over by Jail Road. But we got to turn around. If we can get the smaller items like that taken care of, it'll help a whole lot with everything that's going on in this whole situation. Take care of the crime addictions, the addictions, the homelessness, and the crime. It's all got to be worked with together.
Thank you. Bridget Mearns.
This has been identified as a priority in my platform, and There is a community well-being and safety strategy. There has been some significant work done on mapping the services we have. It's now about political will and making that strategy move forward. That's one place to start in the first 90 days to see that moving forward and having some clear accountability and results. The second would be reaching out to other municipalities. We're not alone in this. This is happening all across North America. There are things that are working in other municipalities. Calgary has a great drop-in center. That might be something that works for us so that we're meeting people where they are, not just in recovery, but just where they are. The other thing is reaching out to the other orders of government. Again, this isn't something we're going to solve alone. We can't do it without the other orders of government. So in the first 90 days, I'd be reaching out with them and also talking to them about helping us with this.
Thank you. Stephen Mogdan.
So definitely we need to be supporting our people, supporting our community. That takes various forms, and we don't really have the luxury of waiting for that. So we do need to start on that right away. One thing that we need to make sure that we have in place is adequate housing solutions. We need to make sure, and this is a bit of a dirty phrase, but we need to make sure that we still have available to people realistic harm reduction services so that we're supporting people while they are on their road eventually to getting to some rehabilitation and recovery. We need to make sure that we have really viable transitional services. We need to make sure that we're providing opportunities for people to gain meaningful employment once they're on that road to recovery. That's a crucial component of that. It is going to require assistance with other orders of government and funding coming from that, but it's something that we have to prioritize here in Lethbridge.
Thank you. Again, we'll start with Sheldon Daichi for the next question. Sherry Kane, will you please pose the question?
What tangible ideas do you have to revitalize downtown?
Tangible ideas is, first of all, you got to deal with the social issues downtown. And I've presented my vision towards it and making it a reality, and so that we can implement, not rebuilding or reinventing the wheel that's been mentioned. There's already a plan and we need to implement it. Secondly, we have a street called Festival Street. Why is it called Festival Street when it's being used as a parking lot? We should be catering and supporting to those small businesses that don't have customers that are accessing their stores. So why don't we build that as a outside walk-in area or dining area or whatever, so that we can support those small business downtown. Even looking at the land taxes, those small businesses rent from land or building owners. Why don't we look at reducing some of those taxes so that is filtered down into the small businesses?
Thank you,
so that
Sheldon.
they can rebuild their business and make sure they can get through this next wave.
I appreciate your answers. Blaine Hagan.
Tangible ideas to revitalize downtown. Well, number one thing, I sound like a broken record, restore the police budget. Let's get some feet on the street. Let's get officers and not just officers that need to deal with this, but of course we need to address the root concern. Now that can come by ways of we have a Sage Clan, we have other social groups that help with our downtown social issues. As we've heard numerous times, that is social issues is a concern, but so often it's housing first. And we know we can't get a job unless we have a house. We can't have a job. We can't have a house unless we have a job. Getting them into housing. I've had the opportunity of traveling down to Medicine Hat. They claim to have ended homelessness. Now it's people, there's ways to think or believe that, but what's important about that is that they've done that first. They've got these individuals into homes. What that does is it gives them a place, an address, and they can get into employment. So there's multiple different ways we can do this. And I wish I had more time to speak, but with that, that's some of the ways to revitalize our downtown.
Thank you. Gary Clawson.
I think downtown is a great downtown businesses need some help, like Sheldon was saying. They shouldn't be taxed so hard that they can keep things going. And having those streets that are closed up and so they can walk up and down the streets is a great idea also. But to increase the downtown businesses, you got to keep the crime away. You got to keep the homeless out, and you've got to keep out the drugs. If you have the people with the drugs, I keep going back to the drugs and the addictions and the homelessness, but that's a major cause. If you've got people like you're saying, having a place to stay, place to go to, a house, a home, then they've got, they won't be hanging around loitering, causing any grief.
Thank you. Bridget Mearns.
I think some of the tangible ideas of revitalizing downtown would be to continue to invest in some of the incentive programs and the grants. I think revitalizing downtown requires people to live there and celebrate there and be there, and for businesses to be open and successful. Part of that is obviously going to be dealing with the perception of safety. So making sure that it is safe and the perception of safety is clear. So a communication plan, so people do feel safe when they go down. I spend a lot of time in downtown, quite enjoy it. But I can certainly understand the concerns, specifically in Galt Gardens with the homelessness issue there. I have a number of ideas on that. A drop-in center is one that keeps coming up, where Calgary Drop-in Center has homed over 1,400 people over the last number of years, just by providing a space for people to be. And enforcement is obviously an issue we've talked about as well. But it's not any one thing. It's not any one approach. It's going to take a collaborative approach, and it's going to take from a number of different places.
Thank you. Stephen Mogdan.
Yeah, thanks. I'm not actually going to address the social issues aspect of that, because we talked about that a fair bit tonight. Really, to get to that true vibrancy of downtown and enhancing that, we need to be creative. We need to partner with entrepreneurs who have a view and a vision of bringing events into the downtown. I mean, we look at things like Festival Square, and I think that's a step in the right direction. That's definitely going to work on attracting people to downtown, keeping people there, and making it a better place to be, not only as somebody that's coming for entertainment or recreation, but also for business owners. I think we need to partner with groups that directly benefit from a more vibrant downtown. So we talk about things like the BRZ and the Chamber, Lethbridge Lodging Association, sport tourism. We need to look at those things and support those. And lastly, we need to be courageous. We need to make sure we're not afraid to sponsor or subsidize development. We've talked about the TRIP program, which Bridget was talking about. We need to make sure that those things continue on. Those are good for downtown.
Thank you, Stephen. Again, we'll start over with Sheldon Daichi. Dory Modney, will you please pose the next question?
So a little while ago, we were talking about art, and I was kind of giggling behind my mask because we all support art. It's great. We love to have art. But the real question isn't, should we have art? I have lots of art in my house. I love it, but it's kind of like, art, like it falls between personal preferences. The bigger question is, who should be selecting that art for the downtown area? That's what the public wants to know. Who's selecting it? They want to know who should be selecting that artwork.
Well, and we need to be reaching out to the various different cultural groups that we have here in the city, because those public art surely does define who we are as a city. We are a multicultural city. It is something that we need to be encouraging all other cultural groups to be a part of. They need to be, selecting what kind of art is going out there. We can't impose. Look what happened for somebody or an organization or a government imposing on another nation. Look at it. Look what's happened to it. We need to give that opportunity and that avenue for people of the public of different cultural backgrounds to come forward and define what kind of artwork is most appropriate, and that'll define our community.
Thank you. Blaine Higgin.
Again, thank you for that question, Dory. I think art, exactly as you'd mentioned, something that may be hanging on your walls at home, I may not enjoy, vice versa. You may walk into my house and see my art. Well, gosh, so we definitely need to have a lot of input from the community. And one of the biggest things that I've seen over my time on council is that so much of the art that we purchase through our community, so much of that art and majority of that art comes from outside our community. That's very frustrating. We've got incredible artists here in town, and we just don't see that art throughout our community. So I think that engagement is extremely important. We need to bring more of that, get more of our local artists and to be part of our art collection throughout our community. And so again, I know there's different rules and regulations around what when we put out bids or tenders, but I'd definitely like to see more local art throughout our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary Clawson?
This is a great question because I have a wife who's an artist. And I went to an event one time where somebody wanted a large drawing, and they had about half a dozen to a dozen artists draw these big paintings for the people to look at. Excuse me. And they had some wonderful stuff. Now I know we've got art around this city that came from somewhere, I don't know where, but we have wonderful artists in this country. We have wonderful artists in our area. They do such fantastic work. I think that they could have a contest like that last time we did that, and have the people decide which piece of art they would like in whichever situation it has to be. The question I can't ask that, but it's the artists are wonderful and the people should choose, not just one committee or some committee, but the people should choose that.
Thank you. Bridget Mearns?
So there's a public arts committee that decides on art pieces or how art is decided in our community. I haven't checked it in a while. I don't know the membership of that committee, but I would assume that it's members of the community at large. If it's not, this is what I'm proposing. Members of the business community, members of the allied arts. I would expect artists from multiple disciplines to be part of that committee. Art's subjective. So how do you, what you love, someone else might hate, which is why it needs a committee and why those decisions isn't left in the hands of any one particular person, but indeed a committee that should be representative of our community.
Thank you. Stephen Mogdan?
So the correct answer to your question, Dory, is that it doesn't matter who makes that decision. I think back to the art installation that went in by Canada Olympic Park in Calgary. I don't know if you've been by it, but it kind of looked like some posts, structural steel posts with concrete hanging at kind of an odd angle. And there was a lot of controversy around that cost wise. I think also where the person that designed that was from and that sort of thing. But boy, you talk about it, right? And really at the end of the day, I think that's what the purpose of art is to make people think, make people talk, to challenge people. And so honestly, it doesn't really matter where that comes from. That being said, I certainly would support local artists having a little more of an in, I suppose, than people outside of, outside of Alberta.
Thank you. For our next question, we'll go back to Sheldon Day Chief. Hal Roberts, will you please pose the question?
Great, thank you so much. A large part of the economy involves diversification, a solid economy. Now, a large part of our economy here is based on agriculture. Our farmers were really hurting this year, big time, because of the drought. In fact, the province says there's been over $1 billion in insurance payouts so far for our producers. What other industries would you like to see us bring to Lethbridge, and how can we attract those business owners to help us diversify?
As I mentioned, I proposed a regional approach to all facets of our city: economic, social, so that if you look at our region, and you're right, it's a large agricultural industry. And we need to invite and support and encourage those industries to come and be a part of the hub of city of Lethbridge, because we are in the southern region. We have ranching, we have buffalo people that are raising buffaloes, chickens, you name it, vegetables. We have it all here. We could sustain ourselves here. So we need to reach out to them and partner up with them and give them some incentive to be a part of our city, especially when it comes to Chamber of Commerce, so that they can represent their groups, their minority groups, and including the First Nations people of our neighbors to the west.
Thank you,
They are
Sheldon.
most important, that they need to be involved.
Now we'll move on to Blaine Higgin.
Thank you. Thank you for that question, Hal. Diversification. Well, gosh, I'm not an expert in this, and I'd be the first one to admit it, but there's a lot of experts out there. One in economic development, Lethbridge. If we're trying to find ways to diversify our economy, this is something that I would like to go to the experts and find out what they've got, what they want to bring to the table. We have seen that we're constructing an agri-food hub that's going to be a very large trade and convention center here at the exhibition park, which is just fantastic. That's going to bring so much business into our community. And we need to be able to support that. We need to be able to find what different events are to come in there. And this would be by ways of the Chamber of Commerce, by ways of speaking with Economic Development Lethbridge, as well as with the Mike over at the exhibition park. So there's so many things that we can do to diversify our economy. I would like to speak to the experts and find out what they want to do, because it's important to deal with those.
Thank you. Gary Clawson.
Well, we have a recycling plant in town here, and I've checked on some recycling. We can open up our own system and have our own recycling. We can recycle plastics, we can recycle glass, we can recycle all kinds of stuff. But another important thing, I used to be a truck driver. We used to haul hanging meat to Ottawa, Toronto. We'd haul hanging pigs down there. They'd cut it up. We'd ride around back, pick up the bacon, bring it back to Edmonton. So we could have our own processing plants here, which would employ a whole bunch of people. Processing plants would help a lot. We've got oil up here. We send it away to get refined. We maybe we're too small to have a refining plant, but I tell you, that's big major businesses that would help a lot. And like I say, the recycling, we got to start on the recycling plant. We've got to get one step further and do the recycling more.
Thank you. Bridget Mearns.
Thank you. When I think about where we should be supporting diversification, I think about where we're already investing. So again, speaking about Exhibition Park, we're investing in that large facility. So let's look at tourism. How can we grow tourism in our area? And it's not just agri-food, but it's bringing conventions into our city. It's bringing people to see our attractions. It's attracting the Briar. There's all sorts of aspects to growing tourism, and I think a concentrated effort would go a long way in that. We're investing in the airport. I think there are businesses that benefit from what we're doing at an airport, whether it's warehousing or commercial. I'm not suggesting passenger, but I think there are industries there that would love to be a part of what we're doing at the airport. So that's what immediately comes to mind. But there are Economic Development Lethbridge, Opportunity Lethbridge, the Chamber of Commerce. There's many business organizations that we can tap into and expertise in our community.
Thank you. Stephen Mogdan.
So economic diversification, always a great idea, great principle. But at the same time, you really play to your strengths, right? I don't understand why a community wouldn't do that in the first place. And then also look at economic diversification. In terms of specifics, I really think that there's a lot more that we could do in terms of tourism in Lethbridge, particularly around sport tourism. I think we have an abundance of natural resources here in wind, in solar, and those are growth industries. And we need to really, I think, take advantage of that here. And there's a lot of opportunities that way. And finally, I think we really need to look at opportunities in sort of a knowledge economy, if you will. Especially we've seen in light of COVID, people provide services and they don't have to necessarily be in the same, physically in the spot that they might have had to before. And that can lead to a lot of different industries and a lot of growth in small businesses in a place like Lethbridge.
Thank you. For the final question, we'll start with Sheldon Day Chief again. Tom, will you please pose the last question?
We're going to end on the lighter side. I don't know how great this question is going to land, but inquiring minds do want to know. If you were not running for mayor in this election, which of your fellow candidates would you support?
Me. I've come to know my fellow candidates, and they all bring something to the table. Experience, specialty, and it would be hard to say, really, and that's the truth of it all. There's I could I guess select individuals that have had the opportunity, but at the end of the day, 4 years is long enough, but it really isn't, because I've been in that situation to make a change. 8 years is I believe is more than long enough to have made a difference in our community. And what's missing here is why I've encouraged our citizens to proact with our candidates, is to evaluate and look at what their
Thank you,
successes and
Sheldon.
their
Unfortunately,
failures
I'm going to have to
been.
cut you off.
So, I love
Thank you
them
for
all.
your answer. Blaine Higgin, please.
Didn't have enough money in my pocket to slip it off to Sheldon. Thank you for that question, Tom. It's a great question. I had this just before nominations ended in another interview. And of course, I had to throw out the person's name that was there and just telling them that they still had some time to put their name forward. But obviously, that's not the case with yourself, Tom. So I can't say yourself. We all, and Sheldon mentioned this, we all come with a different I guess we have an end goal we all want to see. We want to see a better community. We want to see drugs leave our community. We want to see rehabilitation of those that are struggling with addiction. There's all of these different goals that we have. How we get there is different from each of us, but we still want that goal. We might take a different path. Now, so I think that as far as who would I pick, I still haven't been paid. And so I'm just trying to wonder who's going to slip me the this is a great group. All of these, Ben, everybody here brings great value and will do a great job in our community. I just hope that the person that does the job in the community the best way, and I believe that it is myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary Clawson.
I've thought about that. That's a loaded question, but nobody's answering your question. They're going to let the time run out so that they can turn around and not have to say who it would be. I presume it would be me, because I think I'd be the best candidate for mayor. I've talked with quite a few of these people in this group here, and like they say, we've all got great stuff to put towards the city of Lethbridge. We all want the best for the city of Lethbridge. If you have to pick, if I were to pick somebody in this thing, I'd lose all my votes, and you don't want to do that. But there's two people at this table that I would support, and I can't mention names, but they've never been on council before. So just so you guys know, that's the closest you're going to get for an answer from me. I'm sorry. I hope somebody else does better than I do.
Thank you. Bridget Mearns.
I'm not going to answer that question directly either. But I do hope that the next person, if it's not me, it's going to be the person that the city chooses. It's going to be the citizens who choose. I trust them to make an educated decision. I trust them to take their responsibility seriously. So I will trust their choice.
Thank you. And last but not least, Stephen Mogdan.
Well, you don't really have a choice, do you? Thanks for the question, Tom. I'm going to answer your question. So the person that I would support, if it's not me, would be the person that is the most positive looking forward and is the person who's best able to lead their council colleagues forward. Now, the name of that person will be determined later, because we still have some campaign left to run. And I don't know who that's going to be, because that's what the campaign is for. So I've dodged this question on more than one occasion. Yeah, that's what you get from this panel with that question.
Thank you. Yeah, that was sure a tough question to end on, but we appreciate all your answers. As we come to an end, I just want to thank all of our candidates, Sheldon, Day Chief, Blaine Higgin, Gary Clawson, Bridget Mearns, and Stephen Mogdan. It must be tough answering these fully loaded questions that our panel here has asked. in 1 minute nonetheless. And I'm sure you guys all had much more to say, and we look forward to hearing more answers from you guys as your campaigns continue. I also want to thank our media panel, Sherry Kane from the Downtown Lethbridge BRZ board, Tom Ralston from Global News, Hal Robert from Bridge City News, and Dory Bodney from Lethbridge News Now, as well as Sonic Media for helping us broadcast this forum tonight. Our official timer, Lana Van Gendron up in the corner, the Downtown BRZ for helping plan this event, the Lethbridge Public Library, specifically Jonathan and Caroline tonight, myself, Emily Chong, your moderator, and also from the Downtown Lethbridge BRZ. And most of all of our attendees, our forum attendees watching from home tonight, we hope that you enjoyed your time here, gained some new insight into the candidates and their platforms. Remember to vote. I think it's October 18th. I should know that more. But October 18th, stay safe and have a great night.
Thanks, Emily.
Thank you.
Thank you. You guys. Smart answer.